Hello friends, Sick Wicked Nasty here, back with another guide, this time for 9.1 Arcane Mage. We're sticking to the same way we played. There's not a lot of changes as far as playstyle goes for Arcane, uh, but I'm going to cover it all anyways, just so you guys don't have to go and watch my other video. We're going to go straight into our Legendary. Legendary is still going to be Arcane Harmony. We are building it on our hands. That's very important because the only other spot we can build it is our shoulders, and that is going to be a Domination gear slot in this raid. So for raid at least, you want them on your hands. I'm running it with Haste Mastery, and I'll get into that here a little later as to why. Covenant, obviously, we're Venthyr for that sweet Mirrors of Torment procs on the clear castings. Next, we're going to get into stats. Stats are going to be a little bit all over the place this time around, just because we're getting into diminishing returns on our stats, which is we hit diminishing returns at 30% from your gear. So, mastery, we start with 10% about mastery just passively. So right now I've got 32%, but from my gear I've only got 22. So I'm allowed to get another 8% on this before I start hitting that diminishing return. And all a diminishing return is once you hit that 30% from your gear, every point of mastery over and above that is now going to equal less of a percentage point than it does now. So right now, your missiles it takes 35 mastery to get 1% damage on your missiles. Once you hit that 30%, once you hit that 40%, that's going to decrease, and it'll be more like it'll take 40 mastery to get you 1% on your missiles, kind of thing. Though I don't know the numbers for sure. I'm just using it as an example. So now that we all understand that, depending who you want to run as a Soulbind will determine what you should build your stats to, because of that DR affecting your numerical values. Something like Theotar's Soothing Shade, it gives you 550 mastery. So if you want to benefit from that mastery, you don't want to be at 40% mastery overall, because now that 550, which should give you about 15% mastery, is going to give you something lower, like 10 to 12-ish. So me personally, I'm going to be staying away from Theotar in raid. I mean, because I have such high mastery already, I just don't feel like that's going to be the best use of my stats. I'm going to be going with Nadia. In raids. In dungeons, I'm going to use Draven. But realistically, all three of these guys are really close with the way everything's working out right now. So use who you want, and I'll just go over each one, kind of where you're going to want your stats to be to run on whichever one you choose. So because I'm going to be running Nadia, I'm going to use Nadia first. Thrill Seeker. It gives percentage-based buffs which are not affected by diminishing returns. So this 20% is a true 20%. And then this 20% on crit that I will get afterwards is also a true 20% on crit. So I'm going to be running this with Arcane Prodigy, and then we're going to come down here, and instead of going to our second potency conduit, we are going to go into Dauntless Duelist, which gives us an automatic 3% damage against our first target in a fight, which is fantastic. I mean, especially in single target fights, it's pretty badass. The next one we're going to go to is this potency slot, and we're actually going to put this Siphoned Malice into this spot. The reason we're using Siphoned Malice over Magi's brand now is because Siphon Malice, if you have it at 213 like I do, it gives 3% per mirror for 10 seconds. So that's 9% for those who are counting. Whereas Magi's brand at 213 was giving us 9% as well. So the way these scale, instead of just giving 9% to your Magi's brand, we're going to give 9% to all of our attacks. And that's why we're using Siphon Malice in our second potency slot here. Then we're going to want to go down here to Sinful Preservation and then into Fatal Flaw as once we get to 55. What I recommend for stats here is I'm going to recommend running 40% Mastery because that's right at your DR, 22% Haste. And the reason why I say stack Haste is because that gets our missile casts down to a 2-second cast if we can get it up to 22%. The reason that's good and why we want to stack Haste and other Arcane Mages don't stack Haste is because it makes you burn your mana faster. Well, in this spec, we have an issue where we don't use enough mana, and that is actually the difference and as to why we're not doing as much damage as those guys that are using the Arcane Blast spec. It's very close, but it's not quite as much. So if we can get that haste up to 22% and get our missiles down to a 2-second cast, we're going to use more mana, which is going to give us more clear casting procs, which is going to generate more DPS. And the reason we want Mastery up at that DR is because Mastery also increases our mana regen. If we can increase our passive regen and our missile damage, then we can increase the rate at which we get clear casting procs from spending it, which is going to just boost our damage by quite a bit. So that's why I'm going there. So as it stands right now, our stat priority on Nadia is Mastery to 40%, Haste to 22%, and then I'm going to say Verse, and then Crit. The reason I say that is because I'm running, and I'm going to recommend it. You all run 2 on-equip Crit trinkets. There are 4 of them in the game right now that I know of. There's Unbound Changeling, that as long as you eat your crit food, you get crit from it. There's Kabbalist Hymnal, which you get from Sire Denathrius. So to start, that's what a lot of people are already going to have. And then there's also dropping off of, not that, out of this raid, dropping off of Kel'Thuzad is the Forbidden Necromantic Tome. And this bad boy gives you 79 crit for 15 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. And you also get to raise an ally as a skeleton if they die, which is neat. But the crit is also going to be what we're looking for here because it's just going to boost up our passive crit. So I'm at 16% right now. That's great. With these 2 trinkets and their proc rates, I'm actually going to be critting closer to 20 to 22% of the time. So because of that, I wouldn't get my crit up any higher than 20, like statically 20 to 25%, because then you're going to start hitting your DR when your trinkets proc, because your DR is going to be around that 35% mark. So you can kind of go crit equals verse until crit is at 25%. Now going into Theatar, the only thing I'm going to do differently here is I'm going to run my mastery a little bit lower. I'll run my mastery around that 30% mark, so that you're still going to get a little bit of DR when you get that, but it's not going to be a waste. And then I would take those stats that I'm not putting into mastery. I'm going to make sure I get up to my 22% haste, so that's the same. You want 22% haste because you want those missiles shooting off at 2 seconds a channel. And then we're going to get into same kind of thing. You're running those 2 crit trinkets, so you're going to want to stack your crit up to about 25% with those trinkets, and then you're going to put the rest into verse if you can. A good habit to get into is just, keep your gear over a certain eye level. So when you're running normal here, if you get a piece that's 226, hold on to it. I mean, trade it if it helps your raid group, but otherwise, hold on to it so that you can mix and match your stats and kind of do the min-max thing a little later on. Obviously, if you're going up to heroic, eye level is king. So disregard your secondaries if you have to, just to get that sweet, sweet intellect. But yeah, going into there, we're going to run all 3 potencies on Theotar. We're going to run Siphon Malice, Arcane Prodigy, and Magi's Brand, because there's nothing else here that he really gives you that's worth a whole lot other than this mastery buff. But yeah, that's my recommendations for Theotar. If you're going to run Draven, we're only going to run 2 potencies with Draven as well, so you're going to run your Arcane Prodigy and your Siphon Malice again. You're going to go through Built for War here, because it is pretty nutty. I think it sims the best, but it is 100% dependent on your healing in your raid group. So, I mean, for dungeons, I think this is going to be the guy that I run for dungeons, just because it's a lot easier to stay above 80% health in a dungeon. And this down here also gives you just a flat 3% damage boost, which is fantastic. So that's what I'm going to recommend for him. For stats for running Draven, it's going to be 40% mastery, 22% haste, and then crit equals verse, crit up to 25, and verse after that. I don't think we're going to get enough stats here to hit that, to hit 40% mastery, 22% haste, and 25% crit. So just watch out for that. I don't think we're gonna get there. So it's just kind of crit equals verse after the 40% mastery and the 22% haste. Alrighty, that is our Soulbinds and our stats. It's kind of convoluted, kind of all over the place. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot them at me, either when on stream, when I'm streaming over on Twitch or on YouTube or Facebook for that matter, or yeah, just leave a question in the comments and I will answer you. Okay, now that we got all of the convoluted crap out of the way, let's get into Domination gear. So the way Domination gear is going to work is there's 5 items that will drop in the raid with a Domination socket on them. Those 5 items are helm, chest, shoulders, and then for us it is going to be belt and wrists. So your helm, your chest, and your shoulders will give you an option, will have a bonus attached to them depending on how you gem your gear. Now these gems aren't normal gems that you buy off the auction house, they're called Domination shards. So those shards that you get will be either blood, frost, or unholy. The bonus we want is from the helm, which drops off of... The first one drops off of Ner'zhul, and it's going to be 3 unholy shards will give us Chaos Bane, rips a soul fragments from enemies, you damage, increasing your primary stats and dealing shadow damage to them. That's the bonus that we want. We have to get that by socketing 3 unholy shards into our gear. So now every set of shards has kind of the same thing, kind of the same feel as our conduits, where they have a endurance, finesse, and potency kind of thing. So the way you're gonna have to do this is you're gonna have to put in an endurance, potency, and finesse of the unholy, and then you'll want to put in, with your other 2 pieces of gear, you'll want the potency type shards from blood and frost. So the helm is the piece that we need, and then get your unholy shards, get your 3 unholy shards first, and then you want to round out with 1 frost and 1 blood, just for a recap. Okay, now that we got all that stuff out of the way, let's get into what this rotation is going to look like. So, in my 905 video, it's pretty basic. I said open with mirrors, precast mirrors, into Touch the Magi, into Arcane Power, missiles, barrage. Pretty simple, pretty basic. Still good, still works. Okay, so the way that we can min-max this rotation, not just in the opener, but throughout the entire fight, is by making sure that we have a 4 charge, 18 stack barrage going into Arcane Power before we use Touch. On our opener, we're going to precast Arcane Blast into an Arcane Orb, into another Arcane Blast, and now you're going to hit missiles 3 times. Now you're going to go into mirrors. Now you're going to Arcane Power, barrage, and then you're going to go into your touch. And then it's just rinse and repeat, same as always after that. That's pretty much it, guys, for 9.1. Nothing else has really changed. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. Other than that, let's look forward to hearing from you.